2 years in the pipeline, the Chapman family was anxiously waiting to move into their new Cameron Park home within a fortnight. But their dream has been shattered, literally, by a massive explosion at 3 a.m. yesterday.
It has been a bomb let off, looks like an oxyacetylene bomb. That's all I know. They're thinking possible links with the other one.
Windows were smashed, most of the ceiling collapsed, plus there's extensive structural damage. So bad, in fact, the builders Valley Homes may demolish it.
They really need to gut the place a bit more and then get it structurally checked out by an engineer. They may have to bulldoze the whole place and start from scratch again yet.
Last Friday at 4 a.m, another explosion occurred inside a two-storey townhouse being built next to Islington Park. Police today revealed a crude man-made explosive device was used, although the ignition substance hasn't been identified. The building companies are different in each case, but detectives from Lake Macquarie and Newcastle commands met this afternoon to discuss other possible links between the incidents. Valley Homes director Craig Bowman wasn't available for comment on camera today, but did say that he wasn't aware of any vendettas, adding that he couldn't understand why someone would cause such destruction.
Like most modern technologies, it comes in pocket size, giving you power in the palm of your hand. The CSIRO has developed a prototype of its smart energy system. A handheld device communicates information to electrical appliances in places like homes, offices and shopping centres. For example, a person could tell the device to run their air conditioning only when electricity is below a certain price or at a certain temperature.
It's smart and intelligent because it learns what your preferences are, and it will learn from those and adjust its behaviour to keep you happy, whilst also trying to do things such as minimise your electricity bill.
At the CSIRO, the fully automated smart energy system also chooses whether electricity is bought from the grid or if it's taken from on-site solar panels, wind turbines or even a gas generator.
You can make a choice that says if it's a hot sunny day, I would prefer to operate my house based on the electricity available from the solar panels on my roof.
The CSIRO believes the system can reduce energy bills, especially with electricity suppliers charging different rates at different times of the day. A smart energy system could also communicate with other systems in a suburb and only use power where it's really needed during peak times, reducing blackouts. The CSIRO also uses the smart system to vary the temperature in its cool rooms. The Energy Department wasn't too popular when it froze the social club's beer, but don't worry, that was all part of ironing out the bugs before it's ready for general use. Todd Nardi, NBN News.
It's track and field that features the bulk of the Hunter Valley athletes in Melbourne, but most of them won't see competition until Sunday at the earliest. That's when sprinter Joshua Ross will begin his 100-metre campaign. While at the other end of the running spectrum, Scott Westcott will compete in the marathon on the same day. There'll be plenty of local interest in the high jump, with 6-time national champion Nick Moroney up against his old training partner and Belmont boy Mark Taylor. Interestingly, the latter will line up for Scotland in Monday's preliminary rounds. While their club side is now defunct, Brad Davidson and Russell Hinder were proud Hunter Pirates when they won selection as Boomers, and they'll begin the men's basketball campaign on Friday against Scotland in Bendigo. Diver Matthew Helm has a long wait before he competes, with the synchronised platform event scheduled for Friday week, while fellow Olympian Olivia Gollan races next week as well. While they're all proud members of Australia's biggest ever team for a Commonwealth Games, medalling at Melbourne will still be a tough ask. There's also a strong group of elite athletes with a disability, with swimmer Prue Watt to have the honour as the region's first athlete to compete at the Games on Friday morning.
As the sun set in spectacular fashion at Port Stephens yesterday, they were fishing from the beach, fishing from the rocks, fishing from the wharves, and heading out for the big catch at sea. They were also packed like sardines into the Nelson Bay Bowling Club to protest over the marine park being established in the port. Fishermen will find out in a fortnight which parts of the bay will be closed to fishing, and the state government isn't popular.
There wouldn't be one item that the Labor government hasn't got hold of that they haven't stuffed, whether it's hospitals, roads or fishing.
What this is going to do for this community, what this is going to do for tourism, what this means for our overall economy.
What we have here is a band-aid fix that is bad for the people and bad for the environment.
The Shadow Fisheries Minister has promised to reverse the sanctuary zones if the opposition is voted in at the next election. But fishermen fear their views aren't even being listened to.
The scariest thing is that a lot of the parks that have been implemented so far, especially Cape Byron, after the draft zoning plan, the sanctuary zones were increased in size. So we have very little say in this process.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
With long-held suspicions confirmed amid much fanfare in Sydney yesterday, just which Pirates players will follow the new franchise to Southeast Asia remains to be seen.
The fact that the 100 Pirates were transferring that licence to Singapore means that there's some ready-made players that have an interest to go to Singapore.
Ben Melmoth, Aaron Trahair and Larry Davidson each have a year to run on their current deals with the Pirates and could see that out with the new franchise. However, most of their former teammates feature on the free agents list issued by the NBL today and are looking for new clubs. Hunter Pirates chairman John O'Brien will remain involved with the new franchise and describe the transfer of the licence to Singapore as a better option than having an 11-team competition.
With 12 there, I think a lot of our guys are going to get positions either with the Singaporean team or with other teams in Australia.
Ironically, the new Asian club will be headed by a former Newcastle Falcons player coach, Bob Turner. Jessica Phillis, NBN News.
And we thought we'd have some different stock contractors here, so we've got the Queensland buck jumpers coming down, and the people that regularly come to the rodeos haven't seen these before down here, so it's pretty exciting for them.
It looks pretty enough, but according to those who live next to Black Ned's Bay off the Swansea Channel, it's far from paradise. Sandflies, stinky mud, smelly mangroves, urban runoff, and more recently, raw sewage from Hunter Water's pumping station.
They've got an overflow pipe here, which automatically discharges raw sewage into our waterway.
Hunter Water says the recent discharge was caused by a power failure that meant material from 16 smaller pump stations throughout Caves Beach and Swansea backed up and couldn't be pumped to the Belmont treatment works. The overflow went, well, you know where.
It absolutely smells. I don't know how the people in these houses put up with the amount of stink that comes from the pumping station itself. And I was fishing there 12 months ago when we had overflow, and I was fishing down here, and the stink was unreal.
Hunter Water says it's installed backup pumps to prevent a repeat of the recent problem, but even 3 pumps are useless when there's a power failure.
Why haven't they got some sort of another backup that allows when the power goes off, it automatically clicks in to pump our sewer away instead of letting it all go back into the bay?
Meantime, over in the Swansea Channel, dredging is due to be finished in May. That will deepen the channel near the entrance to Swan Bay, as well as creating a new sandy beach. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It came as no surprise to Dr Arne Sprogus that the area's GPs are overworked. According to his figures from the Hunter Urban Division of General Practice, the latest doctor-patient ratio in Maitland is far worse than the latest federal health statistics. He says it's now more like 1 doctor to every 1,900 residents. Joel Fitzgibbon says such a ratio is reaching third world standards.
Doctors in the Hunter under these circumstances are really overworked, and we are really facing a crisis.
The Maitland area now has 76 full-time GPs. That's down 11 since 2001, despite the massive population growth. Many are now at breaking point, wanting to leave the profession.
Our local doctors are just about at their wits' end. People aren't being denied an opportunity to see a doctor because the GPs just keep opening their door. They're working ridiculous hours.
A medical clinic in Cessnock was recently built to provide some relief to the critical GP shortage. It's staffed by medical students from the University of Newcastle.
The uni clinic at Cessnock is innovative, and it's been a great pressure valve in the Cessnock region in particular. But the crisis remains.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
When even the injured are smiling, you can assume things are going okay. And after a solid pre-season and last weekend's win, what's not to grin about in the Knights camp at the moment? But heading into one of their most dreaded away games, that confidence is something they'll need to hold on to.
I'd like to think that on the back of what we did last week, we've got a fairly healthy and fit football team, and we can go there with a bit more confidence than probably other times when we've been to visit the nation's capital.
Kirk Reynoldson is trying to build on his return to the game after a first season with the Knights he'd rather forget. Almost fully recovered from shoulder surgery, which kept him sidelined for most of 2005, the back rower now finds himself moving into the starting lineup after Clint Newton's back injury. And he knows cementing that spot is as much about overcoming mental hurdles as it is about proving match fitness.
I was fully confident last week going into the game, and during the game I copped a little knock on it, and it plays in your mind every time you go get a tackle, which is hard, and it's just about trying to get that out of your head.
The move left a gap on the interchange, which will be filled by former Scone thoroughbred Todd Lowry.
It's never good to see anyone go down, but that's the sport we play in, and that's just the way it goes. So it's good for me to get a chance, but a bit unlucky for Newts.
Jessica Phillis, NBN News.
The Police Minister Carl Scully called in to meet the troops at Toronto Station today. Like many stations in Lake Macquarie, it was built in the early 60s when crime rates, police numbers and the population were all smaller. But however cramped, police say there's no choice but to get on with the job.
I think it does present some difficulties, but I think we shouldn't be distracted from the great job that the police are doing, despite the difficult circumstances they work in. And essentially we've got some great results in Lake Macquarie and we'll be continuing those. And if improvements come along, we'll take advantage of them. At the moment, we'll do the job with what we got.
Police were happy, though, with news of the extra officers.
5 more cops is a fair few. There's 167 graduating. We've got 80 commands around the state, so for one to get 5 of those is a significant contribution and a recognition that this region actually does need more police.
Obviously, the more police we have, the more we can do. So I look forward to the arrival of these constables, and they'll be deployed to reduce the crime within the command.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
I was lucky to run with the baton earlier last month, and being in the village, it's great atmosphere, great vibe, and now to meet the Queen, that caps it off.
We all knew there would be interest in this landmark site, and by midday, Landcom, the state government agency handling the sale and redevelopment, was being kept busy.
We've had already today over 20 inquiries, so that's a really encouraging sign for a great project.
It won't be a case of whoever puts the biggest offer on the table gets this 1.7 hectare block overlooking the ocean. Landcom will use a 2-stage process, with the expressions of interest taken until mid-next month, used to identify the companies that are large enough and have the experience and capability to fulfil project guidelines to be decided by Planning Minister Frank Sartor.
Once we've selected a group and once the concept plan by the Minister is approved, we can then invite those people to tender on a known project.
And prospective investors and developers are being told what Novocastrians expect.
Through the master planning process, we've talked about the fact that we have a social, environmental and an economic outcome, and of course we've got an outcome that we need to achieve for Health New South Wales. So these are all important considerations in the process of selecting someone right to work with us on this project.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
A pair of shoes, blood-stained clothes and a shattered shop front form part of the police evidence, the crime scene closing off a block of this city street today. According to police, at 2:30 this morning, an argument developed between 2 young men inside the nearby Cambridge Hotel. They say it began as an exchange of words, but later escalated once the men left the pub and headed into Denison Street. It's alleged 21-year-old Eleebana man Reuben Young jumped into his Nissan Patrol 4-wheel drive fitted with a bull bar and accelerated towards Darren McQuinney, who was with 2 friends. It's alleged he struck the 27-year-old from Quakers Hill on the footpath and continued through the shop window, then reversed with the victim caught underneath. He died later in hospital. Police prosecutor Adam Hahn told the court that it was a violent crime, adding that the accused used the vehicle as a weapon. He drove straight over the victim and backed over him, thus killing him. Young has also been charged with failing to stop and assist and high-range drink driving. He returned a blood alcohol reading of 0.185. The defence solicitor told the court that the accused is a fourth-year electrical apprentice at the Araring Power Station. He's from a respectable, law-abiding family from Elibana and until now has never been in trouble with the police. With his parents looking on, Young was refused bail to reappear in Newcastle Court on April 12. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
First signing up as caretaker, Paul Hughes is now full-time CEO of Newcastle Airport. His appointment comes as the airport enjoys phenomenal success, but more passengers mean more traffic and the car park in its present state just can't cope.
We're just finalising issues around our development application and hopefully we'll be able to start construction within the next few weeks.
Among those issues, the RTA has identified the intersection linking Nelson Bay Road with the airport as a potential problem, but in this case, building a new car park is the priority.
We'll look at the major issues in terms of traffic flow around the precinct and we will address how we're going to improve that intersection within the next 12 months.
Although parking facilities are limited at Williamtown, the flow-over area is free at the moment. That's all set to change when the new facility is built, attracting hourly rates and revised long-term charges.
We think that's reasonable in the circumstances, given the amount of infrastructure we have to pay for over the next 3 to 4 years.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News. These steel frame buildings are part of what's called an electrical switch room. This one alone weighs 900 tonnes and it's so big it has to be shipped to its destination in the Northern Territory.
We've manufactured 11 in all for the project and this one is number 7 and 8 that we're loading on the barge today.
The buildings are shuffled into place using a trailer called a cometto. To ensure the barge doesn't hit the bottom when fully loaded in dock, there must be a high tide to keep it afloat.
For the process of delivering them onto the barge from the yard onto the barge is roughly 1,000 hours of design work.
The barge Ceto will leave Newcastle next Tuesday for a 13-day voyage bound for Gove in Arnhem Land. There, these buildings will join others and be put together to help service a new gas-fired power station.
This individual building will control all the electrical distribution out into the plant. The other buildings that we've built are more controlling equipment within the plant.
The first voyage north was made last July. This is trip number 5. One more journey is scheduled for early May to take the remaining 3 rooms. Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
It was a sea of green at Irish pubs across the Hunter today where every spare space was taken over by clover and music lovers got down to a bit of sham rock. It didn't matter that no one could understand the words. They were doing a jig anyway in between pints of Guinness. They were pouring the black frothy chops as fast as they could. They were drinking it in corked hats. They were drinking it with green beards. They were even drinking shots of green and green ales. And tonight, some are looking a little greener than others.
It's an allergic reaction to having to work on Paddy's Day.
Green shirt, green hat, green eyes, probably by the time I get home.
What's the key to enjoying St Patrick's Day, do you reckon? You know it makes your tongue green.
No, no one's going to notice by the end of the night.
Australia has certainly embraced the day, paying tribute to a man who was once enslaved but who went on to become Bishop of Ireland and spread the Christian message far and wide. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Elite athletes with a disability are competing alongside their high-profile teammates at these games and have been attracting plenty of attention themselves. Prue Watt knows all about the pressure of performance, having won a pile of silver in Athens only 2 years ago. And at home, she doesn't want to disappoint either. South African Natalie du Toit setting a world record to be the one to catch in tonight's final. In a complicated qualifying process for EAD events, Watt was officially 8th fastest. She'll back up in the 100-metre heats tomorrow morning. Hunter Pirates players Brad Davidson and Russell Hinder are our next athletes to see action also tonight, with the Boomers playing Scotland in Bendigo. Sunday is the first day for track and field, with the marathon to start things off, including Scott Westcott, while sprinter Joshua Ross races in the heats of the 100 metres.
Because it happened earlier in the week, they're giving them as much time as possible in physio to get right for the Sunday game. So I'd say both of them are 50-50.
No trotters in sight today, but plenty of bike action at Newcastle's new look harness track. Champion rider Craig Anderson today tested the makeshift circuit as he prepares to line up against some of the sport's best.
Just basically go out there and give it my best shot. Just go out and have fun and see what happens.
Anderson, who has 11 Australian titles under his belt and has completed a 2-year stint riding in America, is hoping for a first-class performance tomorrow night. The track in perfect condition, but still set to test the pack.
And it should be good racing. It's a small track, and it's going to be close racing.
From the track, 2 triathlons and more than 1,000 competitors are expected to front the starting line for the 13th Spark Helmore NBN event to be held at Newcastle's foreshore this Sunday. Teams, individuals and seasoned triathletes will compete in 3 races. The proceeds from the event going to the Hunter Medical Research Institute.
Over the 13 years of the event, we've raised over $200,000 for various charities, so it has been a huge success.
Kate Goscombe, NBN News.
Week 1 of the competition, and rooster Adrian Morley has been caught in the NRL's new subtle change in the interpretation of the rule attacking the head of an opponent. Until last year, it's only been the arm or the hand coming in contact with the head of an opponent that's been illegal. But now, as Adrian Morley found out, it's the shoulder as well. And while the NRL should be commended for trying to protect their players, I feel the decision will be met with a lot of problems. By the NRL throwing a dragnet over the game's tackling technique and trying to eradicate the shoulder coming in contact with the head, they're risking a chance of leaving the players in a state of pure frustration. With all the forces involved in rugby league, the fatigue factor, the honest mistakes in judgment and timing, they're leaving absolutely no margin for error. Now, when teaching kids to tackle, the target areas are the lower or mid regions of the body. But in the NRL level, the ball is the ultimate target, which is held at chest height. Now, when making a tackle, there's literally inches involved between the ball and the head. Now, the ball carrier is ducking, he's weaving. It's a moving target to begin with, and with all the pressures involved with the game, it makes an unrealistic goal for the NRL to try and stamp it out. It puts players really on a razor's edge, and it's a prospect that I'm glad I didn't have to deal with while I was playing. Otherwise, I'd spend more times on the sideline than I'd have baked dinners, and I love my baked dinners. Now, on the round 2, it's a Tigers outfit minus Benji Marshall. Should do the job, as well as the Eels, Broncos and the Cowboys on Saturday. On Sunday, a great game between the Roosters and the Storm. I'm leaning towards the Roosters on this one. On Sunday, I also like the Dragons and the Knights. Have a great weekend. I'll see you all next week.
From Canada. Here they are coming down to the wall. It doesn't matter who goes in first. We then have to wait for the judge.
And she's been able to collect bronze here in the 50 metres freestyle in Melbourne.
3 Australians making
Given the pre-season cup final is being played tonight, it must have felt a little strange that 2 of the competition favourites found themselves in something of an AFL backwater today. Sydney is listed as a decent chance to retain the flag, while the Saints are early favourites to win the title. But neither have done much in recent weeks to firm in betting. However, like season stayers, both teams are looking for the perfect finish over a good start, as timing shapes as the key to preparations. Sydney welcomed back Jared Crouch from off-season ankle surgery, as big Barry Hall enjoyed a mixed game up front. Nick Davis, though, simply looked to be picking up where he left off last season. Able to find the ball at just the right times, he then added the required finish, as the Swans finally broke their pre-season duck, winning 12-19 to 11 goals 8.
Born with congenital heart disease, Wendy Trail has spent most of her 25 years managing her condition. In 2002, she underwent a double lung and heart transplant and from there began to build her life. That was until October last year, struck down with bronchiolitis obliterans syndrome in its most advanced stage.
And it's caused from viruses that I had in the past, like pneumonia type viruses, that just basically scarred my lungs.
In a cruel twist, Wendy needs another heart and double lung transplant, and while she waits, her condition gets worse.
And I can hear her through the night vomiting, or I can hear her struggling for breath, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing you can do.
Flanked by her parents and boyfriend, Wendy's circle of mates have also rallied together to organise a fundraising dinner on the 8th of April. There's also a trust, but perhaps the greatest gift would be from someone she'd never be able to thank.
I just really think it's important for people to let their loved ones know that they want to donate their organs, because people are dying.
All we want is the best for Wendy, you know. We're not worried about ourselves, we just want Wendy to get a donor and have a relatively long, good life, you know.
It was a chance for the leather-clad to show their softer side. The region's bikers rolled in Newcastle today, loaded up with blankets and canned food that will help families in need this winter. It was the biggest turnout for the appeal, the convoy carrying much-needed cargo from Sandgate to Bar Beach. Donated to the Salvation Army, the pile of goods kept on growing as the bikers kept on giving. For the riders, it was a chance to help make a difference.
Well, it gives all of us, it gives a good feeling to help somebody that's less fortunate than we are.
It's getting bigger every year. That's great. I like doing it for the charity. I do it every year for the charity.
The bikers also digging deep to donate funds for needy families.
It's just their heart, and that's what we look to. We look to the heart of these people that care about other people.
Kate Goscombe, NBN News. It's with talent like this that the Hunter Central Coast Regional Wind Ensemble hopes will take them to the top. The group, which formed only a year ago, is preparing to compete at the Pacific Basin Music Festival in Hawaii.
These are the best of the region.
Aged between 10 and 18 years old, the players went through a rigorous audition to become part of the ensemble. They've put in countless hours of practice over the past 5 weeks in order to mix it with the best overseas.
They'll have Guam, Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Canada and the USA. And we're actually the only ensemble in the wind ensemble going from Australia.
Kate Goscombe, NBN News.
In obvious discomfort, Scott Westcott's spirits lifted to a whole new level when greeted by a packed MCG crowd in the closing stages of the marathon. After all the months of lonely training, let alone the event itself, it was a lap to savour as Westcott led the 3 Australians into the stadium. The 30-year-old schoolteacher may have missed a medal in 4th place, but in this event, just finishing is a winning performance. At the other end of the racing spectrum, sprinter Joshua Ross, racing from the middle lanes in all green, got his first outing on the MCG today as well. In one of his best starts of the year, he cooled the Jets just short of the line to finish 3rd, but automatically qualify for tomorrow's semi-finals after clocking his 3rd fastest ever time. And Prue Watt completes her Games campaign tonight in the final of the 100 metres freestyle for elite athletes with a disability.
This normally quiet residential street in Western Maitland became a crime scene just before 1 this morning. A 24-year-old woman who had only recently moved into the rented Vinden Street house was shot after going to a front window of the lounge room to check on a car she heard outside the house.
Some brakes had made a noise. It wasn't a screeching halt, but the brakes had made a noise.
Then gunshots awoke some in the sleeping neighbourhood.
Look, all I heard was just sounded like firecrackers and a car sped off, and I just thought it was kids playing, so I didn't take much notice.
Ambulance officers rushed to the scene to find the victim fighting for life. However, she died before reaching nearby Maitland Hospital. The woman's partner, who was in the kitchen, and 2 sleeping children aged 10 months and 5 years escaped the attack unharmed. 2 spent shell casings found on the roadway outside the house were among the few clues a task force of 15 detectives and forensic investigators have as they hunt for the vehicle and the shooter.
Anyone at all that saw anything suspicious in Rutherford, if they saw a car of any description speeding away at about 5 to 1 in the morning or shortly thereafter, contact Crime Stoppers or the Maitland Police so that we can follow that.
Residents living close to the murder scene today gathered together to support one another, while others in the street tried to fathom why a drive-by killing would happen in their neighbourhood.
It's usually a very quiet area, and we're always saying what a nice street it is.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
It's not just the students who are keen to learn. Teachers are heading back to the classroom as well, learning how to better identify students who stand out from the rest.
Recognising that gifted children already know something, or recognising that they can learn things in less time than others. Those are the sorts of things that teachers are starting to look at and the implications of those.
It's a real challenge for teachers who today gathered with other educational professionals to talk through the issues. Some teachers lack the training to assist gifted children, while a number of students may hide their ability for years, making it difficult to identify their talent.
Doing that requires them to become more perceptive and perhaps use a range of different methods to do so, not just rely on their own subjective judgments but involve others in the process.
The conference also aiming to help teachers work the curriculum to guide students with intellectual potential.
How to assist children to set up groups within their classroom and indeed acceleration of course, which may be moving up the line.
Kate Goscombe, NBN News.
You haven't been able to get a seat at the basketball games for months, with Country Victoria jumping at the chance to watch Commonwealth Games action. Russell Hinder got a front row seat to the CJ Bruton service show as the forward fed off the king. As soon as Nigeria knocked one down, the two would combine again. At this range, it was hard to miss, and Hinder didn't, on his way to 8 points. Brad Davidson likes shooting from downtown, and he was just as accurate from outside the arc. The guard on his way to 12 points in a game Australia won by 46. They take on India tonight in Ballarat in a match that should pose few problems either. A mixed day for Hunter high jumpers with Nick Moroney through to Wednesday's 8-man final. However, Belmont's Scottish representative Mark Taylor missed out. Ben Harradine begins his campaign in the discus tomorrow, as does cyclist Olivia Gollan, who'll hit the road in the time trial.
A chance to cool the jets this morning after a day the Knights were red hot in the nation's capital in more ways than one. Sporting the new look away strip, the side scored 12 tries. In fact, you were unlucky if you didn't cross the stripe. A Canberra mistake and a Johns kick paid dividends for the visitors, the number 7 backing himself to score. While the Raiders showed glimmers of hope, the Knights were relentless in attack as the 4-pointers just kept coming. Leading by 26 at the break, the Raiders looked like making a game of it early in the second half, but that fight back was short-lived. The script included scoring and plenty of it, and following it to the letter were the Knights. Nearly all starred, including Kurt Gidley, who came up with try number 2. But it came at a price, a corked hamstring, the only real injury concern for the side. His brother Matthew wasn't about to be outdone, while Steve Simpson muscled his way over. Andrew Johns landing his 11th conversion for a personal haul of 30, just 4 short of his own club record.
Last week we defended really well on our line, and yesterday was a bit scrappy.
Colleen West, NBN News.
It's a study that targets the psychological health of single mothers. Conducted by University of Newcastle health researcher Dr. Deborah Loxton, the results have been published in the Medical Journal of Australia. Dr. Loxton describing the findings as disturbing.
We found that sole mothers were more likely than other women to be psychologically distressed, that they were more likely to experience depression, and that they were more likely to take medication for depression.
More than 9,000 women aged between 22 and 27 years old were surveyed, along with 12,000 in the 47 to 52-year-old age group. The results show single mothers are more likely to be economically stressed than other women, and in the younger age group are more likely to have suicidal thoughts and experience self-harm.
The suicidal thoughts and self-harm results were surprising to me. I didn't think that result would be as distinct as it is.
Dr Loxton is now looking to extend her research.
With this particular analysis, having a look at the health and wellbeing of sole mothers, we hope to have a look over the long term to see if there are particular times in sole mothers' lives when they are more vulnerable to psychological distress than other times.
Kate Goscombe, NBN News.
Games haven't always gone according to plan for the Hurricanes, but yesterday's match couldn't have been better scripted. An early goal gave the home side a much-needed confidence boost, and it showed. Replacement goalie Angus Crawley earned his keep, stopping a barrage of balls from the Tigers. Balmain put the Hurricanes on notice with this attempt, and it wasn't long before their work paid off. But the Hunter was just as quick in reply, a redirected shot finding the net. And it wasn't the only one. The Hurricanes led for much of the game, eventually taking out the round 13 fixture by 1. To a water sport of another kind, and despite losing the overall crown to Avoca, the Hunter has dominated the Premier Divisions in the final round of the Central Coast and Hunter Surfboat Series. Pacific Palms topped the Open Men's, followed by Dixon Park, and in the Women's Open class, Redhead was too good. Nobby's Tigers rounded out the placings with 33 points. Colleen West, NBN News. It's these scenes that have put police on high alert.
I do not rule out any operational strategy or tactic that I can use that brings about a secure environment in that football setting.
While there have been few major fan-related incidents at Energy Australia Stadium, police will be adopting a no-nuisance policy on Friday night when the Knights host the Bulldogs and up to 28,000 spectators.
We certainly won't be tolerating any antisocial behaviour or violence, and we'll take immediate and prompt action. And that can include expulsion from the stadium and/or criminal prosecution.
A risk assessment will be carried out with the assistance of Knights management tomorrow afternoon to decide exactly what action is needed to prevent this type of behaviour happening here.
It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace.
More police and security personnel will patrol the event.
We're alert to potential troublemakers, and we'll take action to make sure that they don't cause trouble.
Colleen West, NBN News.